Hey student, watch this video and learn the difference or the definition of separable and inseparable phrasal verbs coming up. Hey friends, Teacher Prix here to help you talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime in English. First of all, thank you so much for joining me on another lesson. It's Tuesday for me. I don't know when it is for you, but I hope you watch this lesson and enjoy. So if it's your first time here, consider subscribing because from Monday to Friday, I post different kinds of lessons to help you become a better and more confident English speaker. Now let's dive into the content because Tuesdays are days when I have to give grammar lessons, so it's a lot of information, okay? Today I'm going to be talking to you about separable and inseparable phrasal verbs. Now, quick review. What are phrasal verbs? Well, a phrasal verb is a verb, like any other, but this verb will usually have particles, a combination of particles. What is a particle? A preposition, okay? So a phrasal verb is a verb plus 1, 2, 3 prepositions. It's possible, okay? And these words combined, these words together, will give the verb a complete different meaning, okay? Now, there are many different kinds of phrasal verbs. So let's take a look at one simple example. Call. Call is not a phrasal verb. Call is a verb, okay? What is to call? To telephone somebody. There are other translations, but this is one of them. Now, if I combine call with a preposition, I can have a phrasal verb. So to call off means to cancel. Cancel, okay? So that's what a phrasal verb is. By combining a simple verb with prepositions, with the particles, I will have a completely different meaning, a different verb, okay? Now, why is that important? Because the problem with students when they are using phrasal verbs is that sometimes they will separate the verbs and the prepositions, the particles, okay, that we like to call, that we say particles. And sometimes we cannot do that. That's when I decided to talk about inseparable phrasal verbs. There are some phrasal verbs that have the particles, but I cannot separate them from the verb, okay? So here, I give you a short explanation. It's when, as I said, you cannot separate the verb from the particles. You cannot put anything in the middle. It's not possible. You cannot insert an object. Usually, what you put in the middle is an object, okay? In the future, I can talk more about objects and the position in sentences, but basically, I cannot write or speak anything in the middle of inseparable phrasal verbs. I cannot separate the phrase, the verb, and the particles, okay? So here's an example to help you understand, to help you visualize what I'm talking about. To care for, it means to like, okay? Now, there are other translations for care for, but I'm not going to talk about them here, okay? This is one possible translation. Now, to care for means to like. When I use care for in spoken language or in written language, I cannot separate care and for. I cannot put any object in the middle between care and for. This is not possible. Care for is inseparable, okay? So after care, I must use for. And after for, I will use the object. I care for you. All of you, my subscribers. So I care for all of you guys. So if you're new around here, consider subscribing because then I will care for you too. Haha. So that's the idea. Now, one big observation that can help you understand when when a phrasal verb is inseparable All the phrasal verbs that have more than one particle are inseparable. If your phrasal verb has more than one, meaning 2, 3, then it's inseparable. You cannot separate, okay? Awesome. So let's take a look at some other examples. To go over. To go over means review. Okay? So here, after go, I cannot put any object there. I need to use the word over immediately after go. So let's go over the plan one more time. The translation of go over means is to review. Let's review the plan. Let's go over the plan. I cannot say let's go the plan over. No, because this is an inseparable phrasal verb. I cannot put any object in the middle between go and over. Only after over. Let's go over the plan. Okay? Awesome. If you're enjoying this kind of lesson and if you want to see more information about this kind of phrasal verbs, hit the like button. That way, I know you enjoy this kind of lesson. Moving on. Now, here I put a list of some phrasal verbs that are inseparable. Teacher Prix, are there more phrasal verbs that are inseparable? Yes, for sure, there are more. Here are some examples. In the descriptions, I shared a website. Okay, it's not my website, it's a website on the internet that has a very nice list of separable and inseparable phrasal verbs and I think it also has the definitions of the phrasal verbs. My challenge to you is, I wrote, for example, here in the inseparable list, I wrote 15 phrasal verbs. Why don't you study these phrasal verbs, okay? Check them out, see what they mean. They are inseparable. Create your examples with these phrasal verbs. That's a good way for you to study. So this is my suggestion. If you're watching this lesson, if you are learning about inseparable phrasal verbs, use this short list, pause the video, write down these phrasal verbs, find the definitions, and then create your examples. That's the best way for you to take advantage of this lesson, okay? So pause, write down the phrasal verbs. I didn't write the definitions on purpose. That was my intention. I just wanted to show you. In the descriptions, remember, there is a short list, a link to a website where you can find a longer list of separable and inseparable phrasal verbs, okay? Moving on, separable phrasal verbs. Awesome. I have a little indigestion. I ate fish for lunch, and I think the fish was not a good idea. And it's strange because fish is usually very healthy, but I feel like my stomach is fighting the fish. I don't feel so good. Separable phrasal verbs. Well, if inseparable means you cannot separate, this is the opposite. You can. Awesome. So some verbs in English will allow an object to be placed in the middle. Verb, object, particles. That's awesome. You can do that with some phrasal verbs, okay? Now, here's an important observation. If you are using a separable phrasal verb and the object is a pronoun, then you must put it in the middle, okay? Because with the separable phrasal verbs, you will see that you have the option of putting in between, between the verb and the particle, or at the end. So you have this option. If your object is a pronoun, then you have no option. You have to put it in the middle, okay, of the phrasal verb. I will show you some examples that will help you better understand this. So let's see, breakdown. Breakdown is a separable phrasal verb, okay? The meaning of breakdown is to divide, to list the parts of something separately, okay? So you analyze by listing the parts of something separately, okay? This is a very common phrasal verb. So I'm going to list the parts of this explanation. I'm gonna break down this explanation of phrasal verbs that's what I'm doing right now. So let me break down this explanation. So with the separable phrasal verbs, I have the option of not splitting, not separating. I can put my object at the end, after the particle. Let me break down this explanation. So explanation is my object. So I have the option of putting this object after the particle. But it's a separable phrasal verb, so I also have the option of putting the object in the middle. Let me break this explanation down. No problems. But if I say it, if I already talked about explanation and now I'm going to say explanation again, I don't want to repeat explanation, I want to use the pronoun, then I cannot put at the end. I must, put it in the middle. Let me break it down, okay? So if it's a pronoun, I don't have an option. I have to put the pronoun between the verb and the particle, okay? And this will usually happen, this will happen with the separable phrasal verbs. You will see that with many inseparable, well, there's a lot of explanation about inseparable phrasal verbs. I don't want to get so deep in the explanations, but this will basically happen with separable phrasal verbs, and in this case you have no option. It goes in the middle, okay? And as the inseparable, there is a very long list. I don't understand your question, Joseph. What are exactly their roles of phrasal verbs? I'm not sure I understand this question at all. The role of a phrasal verb depends on the translation. If the translation is climb, then the role of the phrasal verb is climb. So be more specific, okay? I don't understand your question. So here I have another list of separable phrasal verbs that you can use both by splitting verb plus particle or not, using the object at the end. No problems, okay? Now, as I said, I'm not putting the description of the phrasal verb here, the explanation. My challenge to you is that you pause this video, choose some phrasal verbs, create your examples, okay? But as I said, at the descriptions, I have a website link where you can find, it's not my website, it's just a website I found on the internet that has a list of separable and inseparable phrasal verbs. But you could be thinking, okay, teacher, that's nice, but how do I know that it's separable and inseparable? And I can get into more details in another video, but my suggestion to you is check the dictionary. If you are learning a new phrasal verb and you are not sure that it's separable or inseparable, I recommend you check Oxford, Cambridge, Collins Dictionary, because they give you examples of how to use this phrasal verb. Actually, in some of them, they even give you the definition if it's separable or inseparable. Okay, not all of them, some of them do. But in general, the examples of the phrasal verbs will show you if they are separable or inseparable. Okay, and if you see that the phrasal verb is separable, then you have both options. And if you see that it's inseparable, then you already know. So the dictionaries will help you with understanding whether they are separable or not. Okay, this is a good way to start. Now, based on the list that I gave you, I put some phrasal verbs that are very popular, that native speakers use all the time. So if you want to start somewhere, start with this video. This video has the most popular separable and inseparable phrasal verbs. Well, not all of them. I wrote a short list, like in the inseparable, for phrasal verbs, I gave 15 phrasal verbs, and now I'm giving you 21. So it's a very, very short list. But it's a good way to start, because remember, I'm always in favor of quality over quantity. So I'm not worried about the numbers. I'm worried about the quality of those numbers. Okay, so this is very important. What I feel is that many people don't know about this definition, about understanding that there is a separable phrasal verb, there is an inseparable phrasal verb. Many English learners just think that phrasal verbs are just like other verbs, the same thing. But no, you have a little bit more explanation about them, okay? Now, what is your opinion of the day? Because I love when you guys participate. I love when you come back in the comments and participate. So today, I want you to go back in the video, choose one or two verbs from the lists, and write your examples in the comments. So one inseparable phrasal verb and one separable phrasal verb, okay? So two examples. Then you come in the comments and write your example with one inseparable phrasal verb and one example with a separable phrasal verb, okay? Other than that, if you enjoyed this lesson, if you found this lesson useful, I ask you to kindly share this video with your friends, share on social media, share on WhatsApp groups, because that way you help other people like you find this lesson and you help the channel grow as well. Other than that, my friends, thank you so much, and I will see you tomorrow for another English lesson. Bye-bye!